Hello everyone, this is Remlays from 40k Theories, and welcome to this new episode of 40k Lore for Newcomers. For this episode, we will be continuing our brief look at the Warhammer 40,000 timeline. While this video will focus more on humanity's actions, certain important Xenos events will also be documented throughout. So, without further ado, let's begin. While there are many contradicting sources detailing the exact time frame of events, resulting in some potential inaccuracies regarding certain dates and events, the following account is a rough outline of the current timeline throughout M31, one of the most eventful and detailed periods in human history, detailing the end of the Great Crusade, as well as the Horus Heresy, and beyond. Because of how intricate and detailed the events of this time were, only certain key events will be mentioned, which in turn will be expanded upon in future videos. 000 M31. The Ulanor campaign of the Great Crusade begins. The Emperor of Mankind, alongside the Primarchs Horus Lupercal of the Lunar Wolves, Rabute Gilliman of the Ultramarines, and Jagatai Khan of the White Scars begin cleansing the Ulanor sector, seeking to destroy the empire of the notorious Orc warlord Erlak Erg. The conflict would end following Erlak's death at the hands of Horus. Following in the wake of the Imperium's victory, the Emperor announces before a vast congregation, which included several other Primarchs, his plan to return to Terra, which unbeknownst to the Primarchs was to begin overseeing the Emperor's secret Webway project. The Emperor then names Horus as War Master of the Imperium, leaving him to carry on the Great Crusade in the Emperor's name. The White Scars Legion begins pursuing the surviving Orcs into the Chondak system. The Emperor's Children Legion begins the cleansing of the world of Laren. Towards the end of the campaign, the Primarch Fulgrim finds a mysterious silver blade within a great temple and takes it as a trophy. This campaign would also eventually result in the Legion becoming corrupted and turning to the worship of Slanesh several years later. Olympia, the homeworld of the Iron Warriors Legion, begins an open revolt, following the death of Demikos, planetary governor and adoptive father of the Primarch Perturabo. Horus begins associating more with Erebus, the High Chaplain of the Wordbearers Legion, much to the concern of several of the Legion's officers. 001 M31. The continuing debate about the use of Psykers within the Space Marine Legions would lead to the Emperor holding the Council of Nicaea. Despite the impassioned pleas and arguments for the legions to continue utilizing the Librarius by Magnus the Red, the Primarch of the psychically sensitive Thousand Suns Legion, and the White Scars Stormseer, Tagatai Yasuge, the Emperor decrees that all Psykers within the legions be returned to rank-and-file operations within their battle companies, and forbidden from wielding their powers. Magnus the Red is ordered to cease his studies of sorcery and the warp. The position of chaplain is introduced into the ranks of the legions, whose task is primarily to ensure that the Emperor's decree is followed. A battle company of the Blood Angels Legion would attempt to purge the world known as Murder of the Xenos race known as the Megarachnids, but would be slaughtered by the Xenos. The world is later assaulted by forces of the Emperor's Children, Blood Angels, and eventually the Lunar Wolves legions, who engage in a bitter conflict with the creatures. The Death Guard, Iron Hands, and Salamanders legions would bring the world of 154-4 into compliance. Farseers of the enigmatic Eldari race use their powers to send visions and warnings to Ferrus Manus, the Primarch of the Iron Hands, about future events. Ferrus ignores their pleas. Vulcan, the Primarch of the Salamanders, renames the world to Caldera, and swears an oath to always ensure it is protected. Alpharius and Omegon of the Alpha Legion, thanks to the aid of the perpetual John Grammaticus, are shown a vision of the future by the Xenos organization known as the Cabal, before they would choose to side with Horus when the Horus heresy eventually begins in order to save the galaxy from being consumed by the powers of chaos at the cost of humanity's extinction. 002 M31. Ships belonging to the human civilization known as the Interrex would make peaceful contact with Horus in orbit of the world of murder. The Interrex explained to Imperial forces that the world was intended to be a prison and reserve for the Megarachnids and other dangerous races. This would lead towards Horus and his legion being invited to discuss political matters upon the Interrex's capital world of Zenobia Principis. In secret, Erebus steals a weapon known as the Anathame from the Interrex's Hall of Devices. Conflict would erupt between the Interrex and the Lunar Wolves, much to Horus's shock and dismay, forcing the Primarch and his legion to flee. This would lead towards a campaign waged by the Lunar Wolves to exterminate the Interrex, believing that there was no longer any chance of establishing peace between the two factions. The Wordbearers Legion would shortly thereafter begin making plans to instigate a rebellion against the Emperor. 003 M31. Horus renames his legion to the Sons of Horus, having been granted the right to do so by the Emperor after his victory at Ulanor. The Imperium loses all contact with the Istvan system. 004 M31. The Davin system declares independence from the Imperium. The planetary governor, Eugen Tember, is gifted the Anaphane blade from Erebus and fortifies his position upon the moon orbiting the world of Davin Prime. The Sons of Horus Legion would be deployed, intent on making Davin once again compliant, but they find that the moon of Davin Prime had been transformed into a pestilential swamp. Horus and his forces are assaulted by plague zombies and plague-bearer demons, but Horus battles his way to Tember's location. Horus executes Tember, which banishes the zombies and demonic creatures, but becomes mortally wounded by the Anathame in the process. In their desperation to save the life of their Primarch, the Sons of Horus bring Horus's body to the service of Davin in order for him to be healed by the Chaos Cultists of the Serpent Lodge. Erebus uses this opportunity to sway Horus to chaotic corruption, and convince the War Master to revolt against the Emperor. Magnus the Red sends an astral projection to Horus in his comatose state in an attempt to convince his brother not to go through with this rebellion, but Horus would not be dissuaded. Magnus would break the Edict of Nicaea and use his sorcery to try and warn the Emperor of Horus's betrayal, but inadvertently and irreparably damages the Terran Webway project in the process, as well as creating a warp tear, allowing demons to flood into the Webway and besiege the Terran Webway Gate. The Emperor in his anger refuses to heed Magnus's warnings, and orders for Lemanrus and the Space Wolves Legion to arrest Magnus and bring him to Terra to stand trial. Horus intercepts these orders and instructs that instead of apprehending Magnus, Russ was to instead destroy him. The Emperor is forced to utilize the Golden Throne to prevent the warp tear from engulfing the entire planet, which effectively removes the Emperor from influencing many events throughout the Horus heresy. The Eldari Farseer Eldrad Ulthran would attempt to warn Fulgrim about the threat of chaos, but would discover too late that the seeds of chaotic corruption had been sown within the Emperor's children Primarch, thanks to the presence of the Leia Blade. The Iron Warriors Legion return to their homeworld of Olympia to brutally quash the rebellion unfolding upon it, which ended when the Primarch Perturabo murders his own adoptive sister, who was one of the instigators of the planetary revolt. Horus instigates a 10-month-long conflict with the Auratian technocracy after murdering Fabricator Consul Emorai Salignac. Horus would use this conflict to acquire various examples of long-lost STC technology in order to win the support of the Martian Mechanicum in his rebellion. Horus then begins plotting with those brothers that the War Master believes would support him within this conflict. Those who are deemed too loyal are instructed to undertake campaigns far from Terra in order to weaken the Loyalists once the rebellion begins. The Dark Angels are sent to the eastern fringes, and the Blood Angels disappear en route to the world of Cygnus Prime. The Space Wolves, alongside a contingent of the Legio Custodes and Sisters of Silence, launch an all-out assault upon Prospero, the homeworld of the Thousand Suns Legion. The conflict results in immense casualties on both sides, and Magnus the Red is broken and seemingly destroyed by Leman Russ, with his soul being fractured into shards. The surviving members of the Thousand Suns Legion, thanks to a ritual overseen by Azek Araman, are teleported to a world known as the Planet of Sorcerers. 005 M31. The Horus Heresy begins. The Sons of Horus, Emperor's Children, World Eaters, and Death Guard legions travel to the Istvan system under the pretense of bringing the system back into compliance. The traitors use this opportunity to purge their legions of any loyalist elements within their ranks by virus bombing the planet. This initially fails, leading to a conflict lasting several months between the loyalists and traitors, before the world would finally be subjected to another orbital bombardment. The loyalist Death Guard captain Nathaniel Garrow, alongside those Astartes under his command, commandeers the ship known as the Eisenstein and flees the conflict in order to reach Terra and warn the Emperor of Horus's betrayal. The Eisenstein would eventually make their way to Luna, Terra's moon, and Garrow would successfully deliver his warning to Rogel Dawn and Malkador, the Sigillite. Horus begins consolidating his forces upon Istvan V in preparation for the Loyalist counterattack. Fulgrim attempts to convince Ferrus Manus to join him in aiding Horus's rebellion, but the Iron Hands Primarch violently rebukes him and remains loyal to the Emperor. Malkador begins to lay the foundations for his Knights Errant, starting with Nathaniel Garrow. The Schism of Mars begins, as civil war erupts between those members of the Mechanicum who swore fealty to Horus's cause, including Fabricator General Kelbor Hal, and those who remain loyal to the Emperor and the Imperium. This conflict would last for over a year before Mars would fall under traitor control. This newly formed Dark Mechanicum unleashes a scrap code virus that cripples nearly every independent forge and manufactorum upon the world. On the world of Caliban, Luther and many other disheartened members of the Dark Angels Legion begin defying their Primarch's orders and become the first of the Fallen Angels. 006 M31. Several battle companies of the Imperial Fist Legion, led by First Captain Sigismund, secure key supplies of weaponry and equipment from Mars. The Loyalist fabricator, Cain, becomes the Fabricator General of the newly founded Adeptus Mechanicus. 7 Space Marine legions enter the Istvan system and prepare to launch an assault upon Istvan V. The drop site massacre takes place. The Raven Guard, Salamander, and Iron Hands legions suffer devastating losses, as the Night Lords, Alpha Legion, Word Bearers, and Iron Warriors reveal their true allegiances. Ferrus Manus is slain by Fulgrim. In his grief, Fulgrim allows the demon within the Leia Blade to take possession of his body. The skull of Ferrus Manus is then delivered to Horus as a trophy. Vulcan is taken prisoner by Conrad Kurz, where he would be tortured continuously, while Corvus Corax, along with a number of loyalist troops, would continue to wage a guerrilla war against the traitor legions before being rescued by a Raven Guard relief force led by Captain Bran. Alpha Legion operatives infiltrate the Raven Guard vessels as the remnants of Corax's forces make their way to Terra. Rogel Dawn issues a summons for all remaining Loyalist Primarchs to return to Terra, while Dawn begins to make preparations in order to reinforce the Imperial Palace against a future traitor assault. Loyalist Iron Warriors defend the fortress world of Shadenhold from traitor forces, holding it for over a year before the survivors led by the warsmith Barabbas Dantiog make their way towards the realm of Ultramar. Fulgrim, against Horus's orders, leads his legion to pillage a Mechanicum resource world. Concerned about their Primarch's behaviour, several high-ranking officers of the Emperor's Children Legion capture and torture their Primarch in an attempt to exorcise the demon from Fulgrim's body. They discover that Fulgrim had already done so at some undetermined point following the Dropsite massacre. The Blood Angels reach Cygnus Prime and battle against a vast demonic horde. The genetic flaw of the Red First manifests itself on a large scale for the first time within the Legion. Sanguinius refuses the temptations offered to him and defeats the Bloodthirster known as Kabanda, banishing the Greater Demon back into the Warp. The Alpha Legion launches simultaneous attacks against the Space Wolves in the Alaxes system and the White Scars in the Chondak system. Due to the contradicting information regarding the events of the Great Crusade and Horus's betrayal, Jagatai Khan ignores Leman Russ's pleas for aid and Rogel Dawn's summons to return to Terra. The White Scars eventually break through the Alpha Legion blockade and travel to the devastated world of Prospero in order to seek proof of the civil war waging within the Imperium. Mars falls completely to the Dark Mechanicum, and the world becomes subsequently blockaded by Loyalist Imperial forces. 007 M31. Corvus Corax and the remainder of the Raven Guard Legion arrive within the Sol system. Corax requests the Emperor's aid in rebuilding his legion after the devastating losses they endured upon Istvan V. The Emperor, using Malkador as a conduit through which to communicate with his son, directs the Primarch to the location of the data and genetic material needed to not only rebuild his legion but do so at a much faster rate. Corax and the Raven Guard return to their homeworld of Kiavar to begin recruitment for the Legion once more, leading to the creation of the Raptors. Alpha Legion double agents steal the data and technology needed for this task while simultaneously sabotaging the Raptor project, transforming the new Astartes recruits for the Raven Guard into shambling monsters. The Wordbearers launch an assault upon the world of Calth, catching the Loyalist Ultramarines Legion by surprise. The conflict results in the creation of the Ruin Storm, which separates the realm of Ultramar from the rest of the Imperium. Fulgrim and Perturabo travel into the Eye of Terror to seek a device known as the Angel Exterminatus. After coming into conflict with a number of Eldari, Fulgrim would attempt to use the power of the Angel Exterminatus to kill Perturabo. Perturabo survives, but Fulgrim achieves apotheosis, becoming a demon prince of the Chaos god Slanesh. Lorgar of the Wordbearers and Angron of the World Eaters lead a joint shadow crusade throughout the realm of Ultramar, massacring billions in order to feed the Ruin Storm. During this crusade, Lorgar would learn after a surprise attack by Drukhari raiders that Angron is destined to become the Blood God's son, and begins making preparations for future events. Angron returns to his world of origin, Nuceria, and, enraged by the local legends that called him a coward, has its population slaughtered. The Night Lord's Legion begins waging a campaign of terror and genocide throughout the eastern fringes, purely to keep the Dark Angels Legion occupied. The Space Wolves Legion manages to break through the Alpha Legion blockade with a Nealaxes nebula and make their way back to Terra. The White Scars reach Prospero and encounter the Loyalist Thousand Son, Revulavada. The Death Guard then launch an attack upon the White Scars after Jagatai Khan declares himself loyal to the Emperor, leading to several years of skirmishes between the two legions. Rabute Guilliman, out of sheer practical necessity, reinstates the Librarius within the Ultramarines Legion in order to counteract the Warpcraft and demonic minions of the Word-Bearers. The Primarch also calls for any and all Loyalist forces that can to gather within the realm of Ultramar. 008 M31. The Officio Assassinorum deploys the first execution force in an attempt to assassinate Horus upon the world of Dagonet, but the assassins would fail in their mission. Thanks to the combination of mass slaughter enacted throughout the Shadow Crusade and a ritual conducted by Lorgar, Angron is eventually blessed with demonhood, becoming a demon prince of the Chaos god Khorne. Horus launches an assault upon the night world of Molech and locates a gateway into the realm of chaos itself. Horus enters before emerging a few moments later, having seemingly spent centuries performing labours for the Chaos gods. As payment for his efforts, Horus's own power is increased exponentially, becoming an equal to the Emperor of Mankind. 009 M31. A mysterious piece of Xenos technology known as the Pharos Beacon is discovered upon the world of Sotha within the realm of Ultramar. The loyalist Iron Warrior Barabbas Dantiog begins his studies of the artifact. The Night Lord's Legion scatters, following an ambush by the Dark Angels. Conrad Kurz, the Primarch of the Night Lords, along with warriors of the Atramentar, his legion's first company, board the Dark Angels' flagship, the Invincible Reason. The Dark Angels repel the invaders, taking the surviving Atramentar prisoner, while Kurz hides within the bowels of the ship. Fearing that the Imperium has fallen to Horus, and that the Emperor has died due to the Ruin Storm, Rabute Guilliman begins a contingency plan to retain as much of his father's Imperium as possible, establishing Imperium Secundus. Dantiog activates the Pharos, creating a beacon similar to the Astronomicon that allows Loyalist forces to navigate the Ruin Storm, with Macragge as the focal point. The Dark Angels and Blood Angels legions, along with various squads and companies from other legions, make their way to Macragge. Conrad Kurz escapes from the Dark Angels and manages to make planetfall. Vulcan manages to escape captivity by teleporting into Macragge's orbit before making what should have been a fatal atmospheric re-entry. Due to his nature as a perpetual, Vulcan would regenerate, but his mind was broken thanks to the torture he had suffered at the hands of the Night Lords. Vulcan and Kurz would clash repeatedly during their time upon the world. Sanguinius is crowned as the ruler of Imperium Secundus, though he refuses to be acknowledged as Emperor, instead dubbing himself Emperor Regent. Lionel Johnson is appointed as Lord High Protector. Vulcan is seemingly slain by John Grammaticus after being stabbed with a shard of fulgurite. While Horus's forces still remain within orbit of Molech, Malkador dispatches a squad of knights errant who attempt to slay the War Master. The Space Wolf Braw Tearfinger manages to carve various markings throughout the War Master's flagship before the knights errant confront the War Master. They fail in their mission and suffer substantial losses. The world of Sotha is assaulted by the Night Lord's Legion. In desperation, Barabbas Dantiog is forced to overload the Pharos beacon, disabling or destroying most of the Night Lord vessels in orbit at the cost of his own life, allowing the Ultramarines to claim victory. The energy wave caused by the overload would then begin attracting the Tyranids to the Milky Way galaxy. And that concludes part 1 of the events of M31. If you enjoyed this video, consider supporting us on Patreon for more content. To those new to 40k, we hope you learnt something. So leave a comment below, and thanks for watching.